Have you noticed all these iPad babies looking at themselves or videos of themselves lately? I also found many parents online that say that their babies love looking at their own videos or photos. So I started wondering, what does this exposure to their own image so early in their life do to their sense of self? Healthy, maybe unhealthy, but it must do something. When do we really start to distinguish ourselves from others and form self awareness and self consciousness? And on this little adventure, I also came across a very interesting phenomena that would have changed my life if I knew it in my teens, or heck, in my 20s. The imaginary audience that we imagine watching us all the time, making us conscious of our own actions. Is it the same as the imaginary audience that I'm talking to right now? Hang around with me and find out, because I'm lonely and want someone to hang out with. That, and because I looked it up, so you don't have to. So let's start from the beginning. Where do babies come from? When a man and a woman, with individual consent of course, get together and take off their clothes. He it. Now that we have that out of the way, let's understand, when do we form a proper sense of self? And I'm not talking about your true self. That's a philosophical question. I'm talking more in terms with psychology. When does a sense of personal identity begin to form? When do you first form an opinion about yourself? But before you do any of that, you first learn to distinguish yourself from the others. Even newborns show very basic forms of distinction. They can differentiate their body from the external environment, and by a few months, they can even recognize familiar faces. But it still doesn't mean that they have self recognition. What they have is more of a distinction between others and the environment. At around the age of 1.5 years is when they slowly start to show an understanding of self as separate from others. And by around the age of 2, most of the kids have some self recognition. And this is also around the time when you see kids starting to use personal pronouns like me, mine. By around the age of 3, a description of the self starts to form, like I have brown hair, I can run fast. Then, from the age of 4 till the age of 7, is when they start to become evaluative of the self. They compare themselves to others. They label themselves. They judge themselves. She is better than me. I am not good at drawing. They start to form opinions about themselves. And from that age onwards, till adolescence, is when these opinions become more stable. They internalize others' views of themselves. Self esteem and identity also emerge in this period. But now, to the more interesting part. At around the age of 11 to 13 years, two other very interesting concepts emerge: the imaginary audience and the personal fable. You definitely want to stay for this. Do you remember when you started to realize that you and others can think? Because around 11 is the age where we start to think about thinking itself, that others may have different thoughts than us, and what those thoughts are, especially if about us. And makes sense since our self focus is increasing around this age due to identity development. You throw all of that together, And thus is born the imaginary audience. You remember when you would think that everyone is constantly watching you and judging you? When you would be paranoid about dressing a certain way, being a certain way? I still feel it sometimes, as many of you would too. But the frequency is much higher in the adolescent phase. It starts at around the age of 11 and peaks till around the age of 15. Some feel it more than the others. Teens may feel as though others are constantly watching, judging, or noticing their appearance, behavior, or mistakes, even when that actually isn't the case. For most people, the imaginary audience gradually fades during late adolescence, around the age of 18, and by early 20s, it is much less prominent for most of us. Personal fable, on the other hand, is a similar concept but with some ingredients changed. Here, we mix our OG increasing self focus with growing abstract thinking, strong emotions, but limited life experience. And poof, personal fable. Was this ever you while growing up? My experiences are unique and no one else truly understands. You feel only you are special, different, or misunderstood. You believe your feelings are deeper than anyone else's. That's called personal fable. Both the imaginary audience and personal fable are natural, and they decline as our identity becomes more stable. When we gain real life social experiences, like meeting different people, we are faced with other new perspectives that are different from ours. This helps in keeping both the imaginary audience and the personal fable to a minimum in our lives. Sure, we still feel it now and then, it never completely disappears. But your sense of self is like the base of a building. The stronger it is, the better it holds under an earthquake. Now that we have the base set, let's come to the core of it all. What does seeing pictures and videos of self as early as a baby do to us? Okay, so tell me this. What is different between looking at yourself in the mirror and looking at yourself on a device? Nothing. So, no, it doesn't really affect the babies since that's exactly what they do looking in the mirror as well. Maybe the much more frequent exposure to self image on phones and tablets aids in a little faster self recognition. But that's it. See you in the next one. Bye. Wait. That is true if that's all it is. Just purely looking at your photos and videos. But in the real world, that's never just it. If approval is a factor in it, that's when everything goes sideways. Imagine your mom took a picture of you as a young child and then showed you only the ones that she thinks looks good. Maybe someone else in your family did that, or simply pointed out to you that you look better in one picture more than the other. Maybe it's the social media telling you how and what to be. Maybe your pictures are now tied to algorithm and likes and shares and all that garbage. Having these factors come in at an age where someone is already struggling with forming a self identity wreaks havoc. It intensifies the experiences of imaginary audience and personal fable. As you can imagine, it strongly affects body image and self esteem. When you start to judge yourself with others' perspectives, and when those perspectives are multiplied by 100 times due to the presence of social media, the end result is not really healthy. Social media is definitely the new drug that you should be looking out for. I don't mean looking out to try, I mean to be careful of and avoid. The only case where it is acceptable to indulge is when you're watching my videos, obviously. So, like this video. I look into things so you don't have to, and I upload videos every other week. There are many interesting videos lined up that you don't want to miss. If you have curiosity and a drive to understand yourself, that is. So, I guess subscribe if you're smart and comment something that you think I should be looking into for you. Bye.